Hello, chat. Dan VR. Today we're talking about PvE. PvE, it's kind of always been a discussion about whether or not it was too easy. And this goes back to like corrupt payback, making the game too easy, yada yada yada. And it's sort of been revived. The conversation has been revitalized now that Agamatsu's doing the PvE or like DVM changes, the Elder Primadon, the Owl, I guess, whatever it's called. I forgot. And then Prime Sharko, whatever. People are talking about PvE again. Is PvE too easy? Is it a little too overtuned? Now, personally, I don't do a lot of PvP or PvE. It's just not fun for me, right? It seems really repetitive. A lot of the times where it's like, I'll watch a Gripper video and it's like best new Godslayer build. I'm like, okay. But then I watch it and it's like, you could play the game blindfolded. You just memorize the number sequence. It's just buff, tornado, metal armament, click, 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 and then you one-shot anything in front of you. You don't even have to play the game, right? You're completely on autopilot, which is probably the first big point of contention coming down to the actual builds. Are the builds, they're just too good. Especially with, again, the new, like, dungeon or whatever. With the right build, there's like no risk, right? You can just fucking clear that thing without even bothering. Pale Briar, Metal, Iron Sing. It's just too strong. Now, the quick fixes would be to disable bells and disable enchants when you're doing these like dungeons or when you're fighting bosses. But that's really lame because then it's like, well, why did I get a bell? Why did I get an enchant? You know, you're taking away some of the coolest powers and features that you can get through your progression. So that's not really a viable option. And a lot of people would argue that you shouldn't nerf those builds because people earned them. They earned the build. What did you do though? Like, that kind of thinking where it's like, well, somebody put hours and hours into theory crafting this build, the right talents, the right mantras, the right setup, the right sequence, they deserve to keep the build. That same sentiment though is not applied to PvP. What about the people that spent hours and hours theory crafting the perfect heavy assassination jet striker build, all the perfect sequence, the perfect everything, and they can one-shot you in the depths and wipe you instantly? You would say that needs to be nerfed, removed. Hell, you would say the player themselves should be banned from the game. But when it comes to PvE, when they have a build that's simultaneously so powerful, it breaks the intended gameplay loop, a lot of people would say that that's okay. And I know what you're going to say. Oh, those are incomparable. They are comparable. This idea that we have to balance PvP and PvE as their separate communities, as their separate things, is part of why we have so many issues. It's the same game, right? Just because you're not like at risk of wiping or not wiping other players, it doesn't mean you should be able to transcend the gameplay loop and just be able to steamroll everything. Because you can autopilot on some of these like really powerful PvE builds. You can just autopilot through the game. You don't even have to really look at what you're doing. Another big problem is the actual boss design, mob design themselves. I like Elder Primadon. I like this new boss, the Owl, whatever. I like Prime Sharko. It's undeniable though that in a lot of these cases, it's just dialing up the difficulty. Like you have corrupt mobs, normal mobs, right? They're whatever. Corrupt mobs, extra health, extra damage. And then like the new mobs we're getting, the new bosses or revamps, it's just even more health and damage. And they do have new moves sprinkled in. I just wish that was more of the focus. I think the like Sharko Cero is really cool. I just wish there was more emphasis on that instead of just it has more health and it does more damage and it's faster. Because even though that is challenging now, inevitably we're going to adjust. There are already people that probably see a Prime Sharko because they're farming the new like dungeon, and they don't think twice. They think it's just whatever. Unique mechanics and complex movesets that are difficult to read, that's what it should be going for, right? Because at the end of the day, if it is the same moveset, the same everything, it's just complex and it's like difficult to read or it has special effects. If I miss the parry, if I miss the dodge, that's just on me, right? Because I just didn't perform. But if it's moving, like, zoom, stomp, disappears, goes, grabs me up, throws me, fucks me, boom, Cero Beam, that's not fun. I can't do anything against that. Especially if I have bad ping, I can't do anything against that. Unless I'm on a build that's just so powerful it doesn't matter. But right, we get these DVM changes, right? on top of this new system where we're just dialing up the difficulty. But the new Deepwoken system, I like it. And it helps PvE builds be essentially more viable in terms of depth skanking. And when I first talked about it, I said, hey, I like this change, but we're going to have to see weeks from now what kind of issues it presents. This is it. Where PvE builds are now significantly more tanky than they used to be. Because I got into a point, again, with the Skipper Gripper builds, where you'd be a glass cannon, right? You didn't worry about dying because you just one-shot everything in front of you and you get a health pack. But now those same builds that did insane damage, but only had 460 HP or whatever, now have 550, close to 600. So they'd still do insane damage. Now they're really tanky. So not only is that an issue in PvP terms, because now you've low-key just incentivized the glass cannon, not even glass cannon builds. I'm gonna get on that. The PvE, PvP. Mental note, bro. I'm coming back to that, and I'm gonna show you guys what I'm cooking up in here. But that also makes it harder to actually make fun, engaging mobs, because now that those same glass cannon builds are more like tanks, they're just do it all. They can do a ton of damage. They're super tanky, because now you have to dial up the difficulty even more, right? Because if the player now does more damage and has more health, the monsters either have to be insanely difficult, or there has to be a lot of them. Well, the engine can't handle a lot of mobs all in one place. Diluvian and Hell mode can get really fucking laggy if your PC and internet's not good. So you have to dial up the difficulty. Well, the dev time needed to make complex, hard to read, crazy moves, that's just not something Deepwoken's gonna do. So, you just dial up the difficulty in this never-ending loop of the monsters get more damage, the monsters get more health, the player gets more damage, the player gets more health, and it's not doomed, right? This is very doomer video. It's not that bad. It's just I'm noticing how this could easily spiral out of control. Right, we did a bit of a U-turn. We course corrected when Aga came on the team and all right, new chapter. We can figure this out. And now we're about to just fucking pendulum back to an even more unbalanced where it's everybody just does a shit ton of damage and everybody's super tanky. But the mobs, and that's because the mobs are super tanky, and the mobs do a shit ton of... I lost my train of thought. Again, no script. I just came on and thought I'd rip this shit. The Duke of Dan Rissia